So I'm going to be doing. I've been getting. Well, first off, hello everyone. I've been getting tons of questions about materials I've used. So I figured I could do a kind of short live session of showing you exactly what I use, and explaining a little bit why I use the materials I used. And then that'll be up for 24 hours, so hopefully people will check out those things when when they ask something. Hopefully they'll find answers over in the video. So a lot of questions, probably the most important question that people ask me, or the one that's most recurrent, is people are somehow surprised that you can paint on paper. And it's very funny because usually people contemplate, painting gouache on a sketchbook or doing watercolors on a sketchbook. So it's really, really strange that they find that oil painting will be so much different. If you think about it, if you really, really think about it, when you're watercoloring, you have gum as a medium for your, like a binding agent for your paint. But your pigments, they're all the same. Chemically, they're all exactly the same. So if you say, for example, well, it's kind of weird that you're painting in oils because the oil paint will degrade paper over time. Really, they're saying it's not about the pigment, it's going to be more about the oil, paper coming in contact with oil. And I guess that is the biggest problem. It's granted, pigments can also be harmful, but I guess the bigger problem, would be oil. Now, what do you do about that? The same thing you can do when you paint, with watercolors, which is nothing strange. You just size the paper. Many people don't know this, but when you buy a watercolor sketchbook or a watercolor pad, the paper has been sized. That's why your paper is very, very stiff. Not all paper has been sized. And of course, you can paint in watercolor with unsized paper if you want to have your watercolors really sink in and for your paper to really absorb the watercolors. We are discussing Salamander. We're discussing materials that I use. So I'm hopefully just going to upload one video for 24 hours, just telling you exactly what I use, why I use it, so that people can be a little more comfortable when contemplating painting on pretty much anything. I don't know why the problem is with paper, what the problem is with paper. So yeah, as I was saying, you run the same risks, exactly the same risks. So every time you think about painting with acrylic paint on your paper, know that, there's some harm done to the paper. Paper is going to absorb some of that paint, and, harm is going to be done to the paper. A lot of people nowadays, for example, David Casson, I know that paints on aluminum panels, and they are non-absorbent surfaces. A lot of other people paint on mylar, which is it's pretty much like a plastic almost. So that way you ensure that the surface you're painting on doesn't absorb your paint, and will not get degraded over time by absorbing your paint. My problem, and I'm only saying your paint because I'm just using paint. That's also one of the reasons that I'm kind of comfortable working with the paint that I have, because I'm not using any medium. Because medium could further damage or shorten the lifespan if you're thinking about tens of years, hundreds of years of a painting that's done in paper. So I'm not using any solvents. I'm not using any varnishes. I'm not using any strange oils other than the ones that the paints are ground in the tube. I'm not using any balsams. I'm not using any strange medium. I'm not even using liquid as a medium for most of them. I think I did use it for some of them at the beginning, but probably 90% of the paintings, 95% of the paintings that I've done have been painted with just pure paint. So I'm not overly concerned about that, because what I am doing is just sealing the paper. That's all you have to do. Now, it's in theory, we could use any size. So if you would want to experiment, you could put rabbit skin glue, or you could put here in Colombia we find fish glue, which is not as it's not as strong as rabbit skin glue. That's the reason we use rabbit skin glue. It's because it's very, very strong. And we use cowhide glue, and that one's also pretty good. Smells terrible. They all smell terrible. When they're left out, they smell terrible. But you could size it. You could size your paper with just about anything. If you think about it, you could size it with glue. You could size it with PVA, which is not quite acrylic, but acrylic is actually a stronger. It makes a stronger bond. It's kind of thicker, so it's a little bit better than PVA glue. But you could put PVA glue. What I use is acrylic. It's an acrylic medium. But what else you could put? You could put gesso. Acrylic gesso would be just fine. Or you could put acrylic paint. To just sort of seal your paper. You're not really making a ground for it. That's not exactly what we're doing. So we're almost kind of hoping that the paper plus the size can behave as a ground, but so in essence, what I'm doing is just sealing it. I would hesitate to call it like a ground. Rabbit skin glue es cola de conejo. Cola de conejo se consigue en tiendas de artes José, sí, o cola de vaca o cola piscis es la cola de pescado. Se consiguen súper fácil. Y solo haces una solución, 10 partes de agua y una parte de cola. So what I use is this, and don't pay attention to the brand. That doesn't matter. Although this is pretty good. Are gesso and gloss media the same? Not exactly the same. Think that this is in gesso. If you want to think about it this way, this acrylic binder is in gesso, right? If you're using like an acrylic, if you're making acrylic paint, it has an acrylic binder. That's what binds the pigment. So gesso has acrylic binder in it, but it has other stuff in it. Aside from white pigment to make it white, it has other stuff that makes it, I think it has like anti-fungal stuff. It has other stuff to like preserve it. But this stuff is just the binder. This is essentially just the binder. And it's transparent. It may look milky and white, but it's transparent. So that's, it dries transparent, and it dries very, very quickly. But yeah, the GAC is very good. Golden, what Philip is saying, Philip is a fantastic painter, by the way. What Philip Ackerman is saying, GAC is very, very good for that. Golden is a really, really good brand. This is a very cheap brand, this PBO, whatever it is. Is a very cheap brand, but Golden actually makes really, really good acrylic like materials. So for that, just find whatever you can find in your area. If it's Liquitex, that's fine. If it's Golden, that's great. If you can find PBO, that's totally cool. I use that one, so that's it. And then, people are usually very concerned about drying times. With me, like this I painted, I think 2 days ago, and it's almost dry to the touch. I think I'm fucking the painting up, but it's almost dry to the touch. So much so that I could do this without really kind of caring what would happen. So it's quite dry. I usually wait about 4, maybe 5 days, at most 5 days. And then what I do is I use a Retouch Varnish. See, this is a Towns one, but whatever you can get. Retouch Varnish, I'm not going to lie, I can't quite say I understand exactly what it is. It says it contains low boiling, what is it? Let me see this. Where is this? I love that these things don't ever tell you like quite exactly what they have in them. Low boiling hydrogen treated naphtha. So it's petroleum based. Yeah, that's so weird. That's crazy. Anyways, low boiling hydrogen treated naphtha. So all I know is that it's all I can tell from that is that it's petroleum based, and so it would mean that if you use any other like petroleum solvents, like you could use that as a solvent instead of using like a stronger solvent let's say turpentine to try and dissolve that. But I use this, and it's a really, really volatile varnish. This is a synthetic varnish though. These are not natural varnishes. So I just apply it with like a synthetic brush, like a small synthetic brush. I'll just apply it. I'll just apply it and brush it. I maybe crack a window open, and that stuff dries in about 20 to 25 minutes. So that's it. And then it's like just super dry, Then the painting, you can handle each page comfortably. Now, one thing, and I was telling you guys about this, happened with this painting, and it was really, really glaring. And it was kind of weird, like the blue pigment, for some reason, I don't know what was going on, but it was sort of beating up the retouch varnish. I don't know why. I'm not going to tell you that I know exactly why. But it has to be just the oil paint reacting with the retouch varnish, because there's nothing else in there. There's nothing else, no medium, nothing else. So what I did was I retouch varnish again, and then it was very homogeneous and it was fine. But what I did, because since I had to put 2 layers on top, it was very glossy. It was really, really glossy, and I didn't like it. So I use this wax that's meant for stone floors, for marble floors and other like stone flooring. So I think this is great stuff, because this is, if you think about it, this is like the equivalent to what natural like beeswax is, in the same way that this is the equivalent to like a Damar varnish, or a I don't know what else, like copal varnish, or whatever like other natural varnishes there are. These are like synthetic options that you have nowadays to actually have something act as a wax agent, like as a matting agent, and this as a sealing agent, because that's what this does. That's what retouch varnish does. So when I'm done with that, then you get pages. I hope you can hear this. Some people are traumatized by this, but I'm going to shut up and show you, and hopefully it'll show. Did you see that little cook? And it doesn't happen like all the time. Look, but they do kind of stick together, but it's never problematic. At least it's not for me. I don't ever see it as something that's kind of, that's, oh my God, the page is stuck together, and then I'm ripping. I'm going to paint this next time. I'm ripping the pages apart. That's the one I did of Danny from Life, like the other night. So a lot of people are just like, oh my God, the drying time is going to be so weird, and the pages are going to stick together. And truth is, they're not. Just be patient. And, as soon as they're dry, put some varnish, seal it, and what I use is a retouch varnish. And then you're fine, and then you're fine to work like on another page, and that's it. Just be patient about it. So that's what I, like 100% of the times. Well, not 100%, but 95% of the times, well, no, 100% of the times I'm using this to seal the pages, and I'm using this to seal my paintings. So those two would be essential for me. Although I'm a bit of a mess, and sometimes, like I've said, I paint on a raw piece of paper, and it looks fantastic. So I would still say that, you know, it's not a bad idea to paint, you know, to do paintings on raw pieces of paper. Like I said, this happens. Can you see that ghost of the image? This is like the oil. That's the paper sucking all the oil. And that's, you know, I'm fine with this. I'm fine if that happens. Like, I'll be paying attention to how this painting kind of changes through time, because I'm very, very curious. So I'll do all that work so you guys don't have to, and I'll let you know what happens. But yeah, so I'm not very worried about the paper being damaged. I mean, I'm sealing it. I'm being sort of coherent in terms of what I'm formally supposed to do technically. So I'm sure it's going to behave pretty well. That in terms of my size and my varnish. I did bring this because I don't do it a lot. But if I have a drawing, like let's say I did a nice drawing, like the one of my daughter. Here's one of my daughter, and here's the other one of my daughter. Where is it? Let me see. Like these drawings. I haven't fixed them yet, but I'm going to fix it. I'm going to fix these two drawings, like later on. I'll use this as a fixative. This is a Lefranc one, which is pretty good. I think it's an alcohol-based fixative, so it's very good. It's different from those. I don't know what, like acetone-based. I guess they are acetone-based, maybe. Like other fixatives. Video of our drawing. Yeah. I'll do a drawing. I'll do a drawing live stream next time. So this is what I would use to like fix a drawing. Brushes, like I've said, some people ask about brushes. I'm going to try to grab very different ones here and different shapes. Let me see. So I think this kind of covers the whole spectrum of what I use. So let's see. So these are both flat synthetic brushes, and they can be quite cheap. You guys probably recognize them. They're fine. Like when you beat them up, they kind of lose their shape. That's like this one is about to go out, but I'm still pretty fond of it, so I'll keep it. So these are flats, so they make really nice sharp strokes. Some people actually love these like flat brushes because they're very good at blocking in form. So you kind of emphasize the way form turns. So I use flats, but I also use filberts. This is a natural hair filbert. Let me see that. Focus, please. That's a natural hair filbert. It's very nice. I guess rosemary brushes. They make really nice ones of these. These though are Escoda ones. They're Spanish brushes. They're very nice. They're very, very nice. I also have a round one, and this is mongoose. These are mongoose. I also have a round one, a round natural hair. I have sables, round sables also. These are almost gone. This one and the other one. You can tell that they're losing like their shape. That's normal. I mean, if you use them, don't expect your brushes to be exactly like the shape and the way that you bought them. You can extend their lives, but they're going to change. I mean, it's fine. They don't last forever. They're not meant to last forever either. So, and this is a flat bristle. So I also use bristles, and this is a filbert bristle. And this is sort of like a bright bristle because it's getting shorter now. But I like it. It's very stumpy, but it's very nice. So those are the brushes that I usually use. So in essence, just different sizes, different shapes. Why different shapes? Because they when you put paint down, they put it in a different shape. You know, a different brush shape, you know, puts paint down in a different shape. That's essentially what you want. So if you want to make a nice kind of clean edge, then, you know, use a flat brush. That's what they're excellent for. If you want to model something, you can use a rounder brush or a filbert brush. Instead of just picking one, I would tell people just have a lot. Learn how they can express things in very different ways, and see which one kind of is sort of coherent with your intent. I would say that not with you. Don't convince that, oh, I just paint with flats. No, come on. That's kind of dumb. That's just saying like, oh, I only use graphites when I draw. I don't use charcoal. No. Don't ever convince yourself that you can do things like one way. Just expand your vision a little bit and know that that's your vocabulary. Like, those are the words you use to express something. So if you have a broader vocabulary, you can actually express more sophisticated things. So teach yourself how to use those different size brushes, and you'll see how that vocabulary expands, and your painting will show it. A lot of people are asking about those gouache paintings I did. And please, like, I am by no means like someone who is an authority in gouache painting. I am a painter, and I can teach myself how to adapt if I'm painting with acrylics, and I can teach myself how to adapt if I'm painting with watercolor, and I can teach myself how to adapt if I'm painting with gouache. The truth is, this is about being honest. I am so not a gouache painter. I tried it because I had some very cheap gouache just lying around, and I found this palette, and I thought, oh, it's gonna, it could be cool if I just gave myself the chance to do a gouache painting. And I had this a little block, like a Royal Langnickel watercolor sketchbook, like block, and I'm not sure block is the right word in English, like a sketchbook. Yeah. So your kids are listening. Kairuna, that's a nice name. I think I just killed your name. I'm sorry. So I'm going to use good language. So I'm not going to curse. So I gave it a shot. I did. Oh, sorry. I did this small. That was me. That was me getting tangled with my headphones. Anyways, so I did this little painting. It's actually larger than. It's kind of strange. It's larger than the actual sketchbook. So I did this little painting just to try it out, and it came out quite nice. But honestly, I had never used gouache. I think that's the most time that little painting is the most time I've spent on a gouache painting in my life, and I'm not exaggerating. This is the truth. I probably had done 2, 3, 10-minute sketches before, but that's about it. But like I said, I know I have a good enough relationship with my paint that I know that I can kind of adapt and kind of tell what I have to do with gouache. And what I was talking about is that I like the fact that you can treat it as watercolor, so that you can do a wash. You can kind of draw with it if you're kind of careful. You can model with it. It's a little opaque. It's a little, not a little opaque. It's opaque, compared to watercolor. And you can actually build it up. That actually has some texture to it. And you can drag the brush. I also like the fact that you could drag your brush strokes. But to be honest, this lost a little bit of the color because I'm using just very, very cheap gouache paint. So it was nicer when it was fresh. I guess like acrylic, not unlike acrylic, it kind of dries and it shifts a little bit in value and it shifts a little bit in saturation. So, but I really liked it. I really liked doing this one. And the drawings, because people were asking, this is a sketch pad that one of my students did, she didn't do it for me, she sells it at the university, at the faculty. It's very nice. And she has, it has this kind of dark, kind of this brownish sort of craft paper, sort of. They tell me the brand of the paper, and I always forget it. But I'm sure you can find like an equivalent to that paper. And I've been kind of sketching on it, and it's very nice also. And and I'm using white watercolor to do the little highlights. So that's essentially what I use when I'm doing these sketchbooks. I'll you know, maybe some other day I'll devote it to showing you what I do for larger paintings. But yeah, those are my materials. I don't think there's anything very weird about it. In terms of technique, like there's no drying time involved. There's no mixing involved. There's nothing really quite strange. It's very basic stuff. Like I said, I think about it this way. I need to seal my paper. I'll use an acrylic, transparent acrylic medium. I need to seal my paintings. I'll use Retouch Varnish that dries very quickly. My paintings are very glossy. I need to make them matte. I'll use a synthetic wax that dries in like 20 minutes. So very simple, super, super, super simple stuff. Since I'm not using medium, I know that, you know, the variables I'm working with are a lot easier to handle, because it's a lot harder when you have layers of paint and when you are having different volumes of oil in those layers of paint. Remember that, you know, the rule in painting is that you always paint with a little bit more oil, so that so that you ensure that the latter layers always dry slower than the ones that are underneath. The biggest problem in oil paint is that something dries very quickly on top, and I always describe it like this, very, very quickly on top, but the stuff that's underneath is still drying. And remember, oil paint never like dies and never like transforms in terms of like chemically transforms. So this one kind of moves and keeps moving until this one just has to give in and it cracks. That's what happens. If this one's very taut, you know, it dries very tightly, and this one's just moving, this one, the one from underneath, because that's what happens with oil paints, like the problems are almost always they come from down up. So that one moves, and then this one cracks. So to avoid all of that, I just use, you know, paint as much as I can, and I'm challenging myself to see if I can express with clarity, I guess. I mean, and clarity doesn't mean that I can't struggle, and that it doesn't mean that there's no doubt in the process. But it's I'm striving for clarity during the process. Clarity in the sense that I'm trying to say, what is it that I want to state with this brushstroke, with this color, or with the whole of the painting? What is it that I want to state, and how is the decision that I'm making right now in the palette helping me emphasize what I want to state with my painting? That's what I try to do every time I paint, and that's what I've been kind of pushing myself to do with this little sketchbook, and it's been helping a ton, to be totally honest, because it's a place to do that. It's a place to just be totally present and saying, okay, I need to mix something and put it down, and I need to judge what I've put down, and I can't just say, oh, I'll scrape it off, or I'll just take my rag and I'll just brush it, I'll just clean it off, or I'll just wait till it dries and then I'll just put a glaze on top of it. No. There's nothing, all those things are quite fine, and they have plastic, very nice, in terms of paint quality, they have very nice effects. They create very, very nice effects in paintings. But what I'm searching for right now is to see if I can clearly state what I'm trying to achieve with the painting in a very short span of time. I can't give myself like the excuse to say, well, I'll just leave this and then I'll get back to it. No. I want to see how clear it can be. So that's how I'm painting. This is the one. I'm going to see if I can paint this one. It's like a little statue of an angel, like a wooden statue of an angel with a base. It has like a gilded base, and I want to see if I can get the all the little like wooden. I want to see if I can paint the quality of that wood against the gilded sort of base here. I think it's going to be super nice, and it'll be a little bit different from just painting kind of flesh and portraits and that's it. But I'm only missing, because I have to catch up. I'm only missing these pink curtains, which I'm really excited to do too. I think they're going to be pretty fascinating. But yeah, so I have those. Let's see. I already showed you guys the one of my daughter. That's on a separate piece of paper. And I've been drawing, and yeah, that's it. And I have some I think, I wasn't sure about it, because I was going to send like some larger paintings for the show with Benjamin at Gallery Nucleus in Portland. I'm a little unsure about it. I've been having so much fun doing these smaller paintings, and Nucleus in Portland is a small gallery. So I don't know if I would want to do a bigger like bigger paintings, like a bigger painting show. I think it would be super nice if I could just send these smaller sort of, like I said, like almost non-assuming paintings. Like they're not trying to be judged as paintings. They're just a testament of me kind of figuring things out. And I'm struggling a bit trying to decide what I'm going to do, because I've already started like some of those paintings, but I'm a little unsure. But I think people would appreciate seeing these smaller ones over there. So yeah, so that's pretty much it. If you guys want, we can do just like 5 minutes of questions, and go small for the show. People will buy them all. Yeah, no, to be totally honest, like I'm not overly concerned about selling the paintings, but I just want to do it because that's what I've been doing at this moment, and I think it would be. It wouldn't be like, I think I have to be right. I have to do right by them, and say, well, painting like this has taught me a ton of stuff. And that's why I appreciate it, because sometimes we feel that the academic side of painting is very small. Like if you go to school or if you go to an atelier and they're teaching you very classical ways of painting, even if it's 4 years, which sounds like a ton of time, that is so small. That is such a short time. If you put that against, if you extrapolate that against like the time you're going to spend just painting, like doing your own paintings, the time that you spend learning painting is going to be so small. So I've always believed that if you think about that. If you think about your learning as being something that's inscribed in the time, within the time in your university or in your faculty or in your workshop or in your atelier or whatever, wherever you're getting your education from, you're going to miss the part where you're constantly educated by your experiences, your painting, day after day, year after year. And I think that's super valuable, that you consider that if you challenge yourself constantly, if you, and I think I kind of define it as offsetting yourself. If you're doing something and you think you're doing it really well, stop doing it and try something else, just so that you make yourself uncomfortable. And when you're uncomfortable, you know that you're learning something. You know that you're doing something that you weren't used to doing, that you're not capable of controlling. And I've always, my whole career, and you can look at my paintings, I've done probably hundreds of paintings where they do feel like my own, but I've always found a way to just shift something and say, okay, I'm done with these and I want to try something else, and then I want to try something else, and I want to try something else, just so that I can keep myself kind of being excited about painting. Because I don't think the most exciting thing about painting is just making paintings. The most exciting thing about painting is just learning something new about painting, about this relationship you're establishing with painting, because this is going to last your life. So it doesn't, making one good painting, what are you going to do for the rest of your life? Let's say you peaked at like 25. If that was the whole thing, if that was the whole point, like, oh, you already did like your masterpiece, like you can just go to bed now, then what's the point? So I found that if I just push myself and just make myself uncomfortable and then kind of battle through it, just fight through it, and then only after I come out, on the other side, only after I reach like the other side, I'm going to say, okay, what did I learn? What can I take home from all this experience? And so I have like periods where I experiment, periods where I paint, and then periods where I reflect upon what I painted and see, how useful it was, and how true to my own intentions I was being. Because many times I also say, oh, crap, I painted this because, I wanted to do a painting like Benjamin did. Like Benjamin, oh my God, like Ben Bjorklund is just is so crazy good. I don't know if you guys saw like the little, I think they're small, like the bathtub paintings that he's been doing. Oh my God, I'm like sick to my stomach. They're so good. And it's so hard to like look at something that's so good and then say, okay, I got to go back to my crappy work and do something that feels so fresh and like nice as the stuff he does, almost like just naturally. But so I think that we can't compete with that. Like, I think Ben is a goddamn genius. I really do. I think he's one of the most inspiring people that I have ever talked with, and I think there's just this raw talent in there that you very seldomly find like in the art world. And I feel that if you try to compete with that, you're always going to lose. So I've said this before. Like, what I do is now is I'll just look at something, and of course it feels like a gut punch, but I'm going to tell myself, this is so beautiful. Let me just experience this, and let me just look at this for what it is, and say, God damn it, Ben, thank you for just being alive, and thank you for doing these amazing paintings. And I have to go back and say, okay, now it's my job. Now it's my turn to find out what I can, what I can bring to this whole, what I can bring to this whole equation. And I missed his name. His name is Benjamin Bjorklund. He's probably one of the most talented freaking painters. And to me, like the watercolorist, like his watercolors are just so masterful and just so effortless, so damn effortless. It's Bjorklund. He's a Swedish painter. Yeah, Victory. Yeah, there you go. Thank you, Inca. Thank you. So he's amazing. Just, and he's this incredibly sensitive being. So if you don't follow him, oh my God, please follow him and just write to him and tell him that he's a lovely human being, because he is. So again, don't try to compete with that. Just try to remember you're walking your own path, and your own path you can stop. Maybe it's there's a beautiful landscape in the path you're walking, and there's nothing wrong in terms of just, sometimes stopping and taking a rest and looking at the stuff that surrounds you and saying, wow, I'm surrounded by beautiful things that other people have done. But then remind yourself that you have to keep walking, like that was your path, and you're going to be alone in this path. And it doesn't mean that that's something terrible. It means that that's something that belongs to you and nobody else's. And that I've always found that that's really empowering, like to know that, for example, I have like 2 kids that are in my life, but those are not my kids. Like, no, I mean, those are my kids. Like, I'm sure those are my kids. Like, genetically, they're my kids. Don't worry about it. That sounded so stupid. No, so what I'm saying is like they don't belong to me in the sense that I always dread like if something happens to them, like I'm going to be destroyed, and I always have to believe that just life has told me like, you know, these are your kids, but you know, I'm just lending them to you, but they don't belong to you. You know, you're not the owner of your kids. And most of the things in our lives are like that. We don't own anything. We don't own ideas or nothing. Nothing really belongs to us. But I do think that this time that you can spend with yourself trying to figure out what you want to say, that is yours. That is one of those rare occasions where you can say, this time is mine. It belongs to me. If you make it so, like if you start kind of having other people contaminated with comments or with influences or, you know, whatever it is, then obviously that time is not going to be your own anymore. But if you make it your own, if you make that little space where you paint your own, that's going to be one of the few moments in your life where you can actually say, this was mine, you know, this actually belonged to me. So I find that really beautiful, to be totally honest. And that's how I try to approach my painting. And I found that it's very invigorating, that regardless of what other people are doing, how good they are, you can always go back to yourself and say, you know, okay, now back to me, and let's see, you know, how much I can grow. And maybe if you kind of think of you know, those little steps that you can take to grow, and you know, even if people beside you are making leaps and they're making you feel like an idiot, but if you make just these tiny little steps, at least they're your steps. You know, you're going to be inching your way to something that's your own. So that should always make you proud. So, anyways, so that's what I'm doing with in terms of materials. But I'm wondering if you guys have any questions regarding, and let's try to keep this regarding materials, so we can have like a little video for a day on materials, and I can answer. If you guys were fine with what I said, you know, and you thought it was clear enough, then that's perfect. But if you want to ask something, I'm totally up for it. I'm not seeing any dots anymore, so I'm very excited about that. But I always have a delay on my comments. So, does the sketchbook paper buckle? Oh, I think you were. Somebody was speaking about that. It kind of does. Look, it kind of does. I think that's almost inevitable, because there is, you know, paper has only one weight, and I mean, it you know, if it was thicker, then, you know, you could minimize the buckling. But it's also bound in the middle, but there's nothing like stretching the papers to the sides. So it's still, like, naturally it's going to buckle. But it's a sketchbook. I mean, I've always just, I can't expect to paint on a sketchbook and make it feel like I'm painting. Let me see if I can, I'm going to, maybe you guys get sick if I do this, but let me see. Like, I can't expect it to behave like those paintings, you know. They're on, like stretched canvases. So, you know, they're going to behave differently. So, so it's just, you know, the fact that you're painting on a sketchbook should tell you that you're doing it for a different reason, and not because you want it to behave like a canvas, like a stretched canvas, or like a board. It's almost like having an apple and just being pissed off that your apple doesn't taste like a strawberry, you know. What camera is there? Oh, that's a view camera. I have a passion for photography, and I did wet plate photography. So I had that one, and I used to shoot my paintings with that. With that view camera, so I would have really nice slides. And I bought these off of eBay years ago. Let me see if I can show them to you. That's my Adventure Time toys. That's a Batman, Hellboy. But those are wet plate cameras. Those are wet plate cameras. So, and I used to do wet plate photography too for a while, but it's so expensive. It's like so crazy expensive. So I used up all my, all the silver that I bought, and I probably did about, I don't know, maybe, how many plates did I do? About 100 plates maybe. And I stopped because it was just very, very expensive. Like silver nitrate is just quite expensive here in Colombia. And all the other chemicals that you need, aside from them being almost impossible to get here in Colombia, it's almost like illegal to get them to do wet plate photography here. It's just a very, very very, very expensive process, but it makes just gorgeous, absolutely gorgeous images. The brand of brush that I use, I don't know which one you're talking about. I've been trying to kind of pimp these Escoda ones, but this one, Irene gave this one to me, Irene Cuadrado, which she's like a kick-ass Spanish painter. She's amazing. She gave me these, but these are older brushes, and you can tell. And you know why you can tell that they're older? Because they're better. That's what happens with age. Because the new ones, aside from the handle just changing, they have less hair. They're not as dense as these. These are far better, far better. But they're still very good. So it's Escoda. And you can buy them off their webpage. I actually bought them off their webpage in Spain, in Barcelona, and they shipped them to Colombia. But I had to pay. I had to pay for the brushes, and then I had to pay when I received the brushes because of like an import tax. So I had to pay around $45 for it. I bought like 6. Was it 6? Maybe 8 brushes. So, I had to pay like $45. Workshops in Europe. I'm doing the Art Escape Italy this year, but I'm not going to do any more this year, unfortunately. So that one's full already. I'm very grateful that one's full. But who Moleskine specifically for oil paint sketchbooks? I don't quite understand that question, Indigo Venice. So I don't know. What type of moleskin? Maybe it's called Sketchbook. It says art in the cover. It says art and then Sketchbook. And if you buy that one has like the thicker. I think it's the thickest paper that the moleskin sketchbooks have. What colors do I have in my palette? I've talked a lot about colors, but right now I'm painting with, let me grab one of my ugly ass palettes. Titanium white. This is like a cadmium lemon yellow. It's like between those two. Cadmium red medium, alizarin crimson, cobalt blue light, and burnt umber. No, raw umber. Raw umber. That's like the palette that I usually use. Workshops in Brazil. If you guys invite me, that would be totally awesome, but you guys have to invite me, so start painting. No, I'm not going to paint right now. This is just material stuff. So start painting and sing and dance. Shut up and paint. When you paint, what music do you have in the background? None, actually. Workshops in Emiratos Árabes. Oh my God, United Arabs. That would be awesome. I totally would go to like Dubai if you guys would have me there. That's like crazy. That would be awesome. What do you seal your paper before painting? Like I said, with this acrylic binder, transparent acrylic binder. That's what I use. Really? None? I forgot. TR artwork. What did you ask that you're saying really none? I forgot what you asked. I'm sorry. You just hear your breath. Oh, I'm sorry. Music. Yeah. No, I I mean, don't take it the wrong way. Like I've listened to music my whole life. It's just that I don't know. If I'm painting, like I'm totally fine with just kind of being with myself. And you know what's the coolest thing about this? That I've taught myself how to not be distracted by almost anything. So I can actually talk and paint, and I could, I could have like the painting of this painting, the one of my feet, the one I did of my feet. I did that like in the dining room table, and I had like my daughter was to like one side of me, and my niece was on the other side, and they were just talking. My mother was in front of me, and everyone was like, oh, blah, 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 blah. There was so much noise in there, and I just painted this, and I thought it was awesome that I painted that. Like it didn't matter that she was there like bugging me the whole time. Like I would have to like paint a couple of strokes, and then she would come by and say, oh, dad, and she would say something, and then I would just do something else. It totally it didn't matter to me, honestly. So what's the secret? No, just your feet are beautiful. That's a little weird, TR artwork. That's a little strange that you're saying that. So please, if you're going to say that, just DM me, and maybe you can do something about it. But dude, I'm kidding. I'm joking. How much is the weight of the notebook? I think I saw that the other day. I think it's 135 grams, the paper, maybe 135 grams, if I'm not mistaken. Sealing your work with retouch varnish. Retouch varnish. You have to look for retouch. That word is very important because that's very different from just regular final varnish. Just no advice for colors. Well, we've done a bunch of free time page. We've done like a ton of color ones. Maybe we can talk about color on the next painting while we're painting the next painting. Have you tried the conservation spray by Krylon, which is similar to? No, but I'm not crazy about sprays. I always think that they leave like an uneven surface, and they leave like these little kind of dots. It's almost like you would have to spray it and then kind of brush it so that it becomes even. So no, it's 165 grams. Thank you, Art by Arda. Yeah, so 165 grams. The art, the moleskin sketchbook. What's in the can? Oh, that's a wax. That's a synthetic wax. That's well, you would have to read Spanish for that. But that's wax for marbles and natural stones, to seal those stones. So if it's good for stones, this is how my mind works. If it's good for stones, why the hell wouldn't it be good for paintings? So gouache tutorials in the future. I don't know. I'm not, like I said, I'm not like Mike Hernandez, just crazy good in gouache. Or like Tadretz, he's so good. That painter is so good too in gouache. Or like freaking Andrew Hem, which is like the most killer person I've seen doing gouache. I'm not one of those people. I could never ever like trick you guys into believing that I understand like the breadth of like gouache painting. I can paint with gouache, but doesn't mean that I truly understand it, to be honest. So the binder goes in the paper before the acrylics. Well, I don't paint with acrylics, I paint with oils, Sister Gray. And you seal the paint with the varnish in the middle. Yeah, so the binder goes first, so you can seal your paper, so you're not doing anything to your paper. Then you just paint freely. As soon as that dries, you use a retouch varnish. Never say that. And the size of your notebook is that A5. Ugh, I forget, dude. Dennis, what is the size of this moleskin? Is it A4, A5, A3? I forget what's the size. I think it's 5 by 8, something like that. 5.5 by 8. While Dennis tells us this, Dennis is super cool. Follow 404 Taken. Those guys are doing something like incredible stuff. Why retouch varnish? Because we have to seal we have to seal the surface, because a lot of the paint is going to dry at different rates. A lot of the pigments dry. Remember, pigments are all different, so they dry at different rates. And sometimes you get matte areas, sometimes you get glossier areas. So you want to homogenize like the surface, and this will make it all sort of, you know, towards the glossy side, but at least it's going to be even, and it's going to look closer to what you actually painted while you were painting. So Dennis is saying, thanks Dennis. So it's 5x8, it's an A3 size, but he's saying, I believe. So we don't know what state Dennis is on right now, how sober he is right now. So maybe, I think he's right with the 5x8. I don't know if he's right with the A3. But yeah, but just look for the 5x8. That's totally cool. So, and somebody said, why not gesso? Because sometimes, like in this little kind of, where is it? This little kind of still life thing that I'm going to do, I think in the next couple of days, I want to have that drawing, which I really struggled with. I was like, oh, fuck me. I'm sorry if there's kids listening. But I really struggled with that drawing. But if I want to keep my drawing, so what I do is I draw with pencil, and maybe I can sketch very roughly with pencil. Many times I don't have to sketch with pencil, but that's what I've been doing. If you put gesso on top, you're gonna miss your you're gonna cover up your drawing. So if you have a transparent binder, then you can actually see your drawing. A4 is the standard printer, A3 is twice bigger, and A5 is twice smaller. So it's A5, Dennis. Go back to your drinking. My God, Dennis. One job, dude. One job. I'm kidding. ¿Cuánto dura en secar la pintura hasta cerrar la página? Por ahí 4 días, yo creo. 4 días, 5 máximo. Y ya después puedo tranquilamente ponerle el barniz de retoque y ya puedo empezar a pintar la otra página. So thank you. So I think we're good. Any more questions? And then we'll leave it at this. Any more questions? Maybe. I have like awesome secrets. What's your notebook name? I call it Stacy. Yes. And she sleeps with me at nights. Oh my, I don't know where I'm going with this. No, it's a Moleskine sketchbook. And yeah, it's the art sketchbook one. Patron, Tanya? She's asking about the patron. If you guys knew, like, what I've been trying to deal with, dealing with and trying to do this, it's just, I'm about to, like, you know, I'm very frustrated with this because I happen to live in a country that I love, that is Colombia, because I love, like, I was born in the U.S., but if you ask me, and I'm American by citizenship, and I've paid my taxes over there, and I've worked over there, I studied over there, but I live here. Like, this is my country. Like, I am a very, very proud Colombian. I am. But there's laws in here that impede many of the things that people like in America or all over Europe could do instantly. And it's been so frustrating. And like I said, I was able to do my Kickstarter, the book, I was able to do it with my brother's help. Unfortunately, it's hard for him to help me now. So I have to do it, I have to at least try to figure things out by myself now. And I know what you guys are probably saying, what, just like, you know, hit like go live. And my Kickstarter page is like, it's, you know, it's done. And my Indiegogo, it's like done. And the same thing happens with like Patreon. Everything is like done. It's set up. Everything is set up. But the hardest thing for me, for God's sakes, is that if you guys just put money in there, be it like $5, you don't want to know how complicated it is to get those $5 from wherever you are in the world to Colombia. It is so so hard. I'm not